What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another Comic Talk with Hefty. This is the final week of Thor month, and today I've got a classic Marvel story for you. One of my favorite ever independent comics, and a current Marvel comic you should be checking out. So let's go ahead and get started. And for my classic Marvel story for this week, this one is probably the most controversial one I've ever done. And I would not be surprised if I get some angry comments on this video disagreeing with me. But this is our last Thor recommendation. And before we actually get to it, I gotta give you a little bit of background. So in 2014, Marvel did a big crossover series called Original Sin. The series itself wasn't all that incredible. But the short version of it is the Watcher, Uatu the Watcher, who you may know as like the main character in the Disney Plus What If series, was killed, and all of his secrets were up for grabs because the Watcher obviously watches everything and knows everything. And towards the end of the series, I believe it was in issue 7 of 8 of Original Sin. Um, One sentence is whispered into Thor's ear, and we don't know for several years what that sentence was, but whatever it was shook Thor to his core, and he became no longer worthy. So this was written by Jason Aaron, who had written the Thor God of Thunder series I recommended in the first week of Thor month. So this took place after that series where Thor becomes no longer worthy. And the next series gets picked up, which is Thor, but this time Thor's a chick. This is what a lot of the God of Love and Thunder movie that came out yesterday is based off of. And I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm going this afternoon. I want to make sure I record this video before I see it so that there's no sort of influence based off of the movie. Um, this was a very controversial storyline when it came out. Not a lot of people, or there were a lot of people that were not happy about this. And I do want to take a second and talk about that. Um, this is the same time period that Sam Wilson, the Falcon, became the new Captain America, and Steve Rogers was not Captain America. And the same time period that Riri Williams was Iron Man, and Tony Stark was in a coma. Um, and this was also right around the same time as Captain America's Civil War, I believe. So again, goes back to I don't know what Marvel's thinking whenever they uh, make changes to the lead comic book characters right when a movie with those characters is coming out. They say that, the movies are supposed to help support new people getting into comic books, but if the comic books are nothing like the movie they just saw, I don't know what. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so three of the biggest characters in Marvel were all not the original characters during this time period in comics. A lot of people were upset about that. A lot of people were saying it was the end of comics, that comics had become too woke, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to get into the woke controversy right now, but I will say anyone that treated this like it was a harbinger of doom obviously has not been paying attention. This is by far not the first time the main character has been replaced. Um, James Rhodes was Iron Man in the past. A young Tony Stark was Iron Man in the past. Um, uh, the former Super Patriot and former U.S. agent John Walker was Captain America in the past. Bucky was Captain America in the past. Um, a guy named Eric Masterson was Thor in the past. There was a Lady Thor. There's Beta Ray Bill. We get in Spider-Man. You got Ben Riley. The point is that um, the main characters of these long-running comic books are constantly changed out for other people. And here's a secret, right? It's never permanent. They always go back to the original characters. So people that get pissed off because someone got replaced by somebody else, um, it's going back. It's going to go back. All right. So anyway, that's how I felt going into the storyline. So now that Thor is unworthy of the hammer goes to somebody else, a mystery woman, right? And the first 8 issues of the comic series is all about the mystery of who this is. And they got like the usual suspects, and they're crush them out one after another. It's not really a spoiler at this point because if you know anything about the movie, this wasn't they couldn't add the mystery element to this one. It's Jane Foster, it's Natalie Portman. And if anyone were to be worthy and take over the hammer, in my opinion, it would be Jane. Um, so it makes complete sense to me. And again, I knew that the Odin son was going to become worthy again down the road. And spoiler, he did several years later, after, in my opinion, a fantastic storyline that really gave new life to Jane. Had a very interesting storyline of like, what is Thor without his worthiness? If he's no longer uh, you know the worthy, what is he, what does he do with his life now, and also continued all the subplots that Jason Aaron had introduced in the God of Thunder series, including the long-running Malekith War of the Realms storyline that went on until the very end. And overall, Jason Aaron wrote Thor for 6, 7 years, and I loved every minute of it. So there's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of people that don't enjoy this. And if you don't enjoy it, fine. Everyone enjoys what they enjoy. But if you are going to dislike it just because it's a woman acting as Thor, and that's as far as that goes, I implore you to please give it a try. It's actually a great story, very good writing, and the artwork is incredible. It's not Esad Ribic as it was in God of Thunder, but Russell Dowderman was the main artist in the series, and I thought he did a great job. Um, yeah, very enjoyable. I hope you like it. Anyway, I am expecting to get a lot of hate in the comments about that. All right, on to the uh, independent comic that I'm recommending this week. And this is one of my favorites, and this is one that I've recommended to a lot of people. And one I particularly recommend to people that may not necessarily be into comics, but may be into anime or manga. And this is East of West. East of West ran from 2013 to 2019. So a total of 45 issues collected in 10 books, or I think through, 2 or 3 omnibuses. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, and the art is by Nick Dragotta. And this story is fantastic. It's such a well researched and well plotted story. And when people ask me what it's about, it's hard for me to describe. So what I'm going to do for the first time in the series is I'm actually going to read to you a little bit from the Wikipedia page because that might do a better job than I could. Um, All right, according to Jonathan Hickman, the writer, the things that divide us are stronger than the things that unite us. The end times are imminent, and we all hate each other too much to come together and solve our problems. Our final destination is imminent, and that is the apocalypse. And then, in the face of all that despair and gloom, somehow there is still hope. This series is a science fiction western, yes, a science fiction western set in a dystopian America, including the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Of the four characters, Death is a Clint Eastwoody man wearing a suit, cowboy hat, and skull bolo tie, and feels betrayed, and the others, War, Famine, and Conquest, feel abandoned. It's set in the dystopian 2064 United States, and this is where, for me, this gets really interesting. The series explores an alternate timeline where in the past the Civil War never ended and an extended war continued until a comet hits present day Kansas in 1908. The six warring parties met at Armistice, which is the site of the comet's impact, and make a truce. This resulted in the signing of the treaty forming the Seven Nations of America, which would be the Armistice, which is basically like the, neutral land in the middle, the Union, the Confederacy, the Kingdom of New Orleans, the Endless Nation, which are the American Native Americans, the Republic of Texas, and the People's Republic of America. People's Republic of America would be the Chinese that were over here working on the trains and ended up getting their own land. Um, so now it's 2064, and the actual literal apocalypse is upon us, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse have shown up. And Death has his own revenge story ready to go, and the rest of the horsemen are working with the Chosen, who are trying to bring about the apocalypse and the end of days. Uh, I don't know if any of that made sense, but trust me, it's a fantastic read. And the other thing that's fantastic about this is the artwork. I don't typically do this, but I felt I needed to specifically for East of West. I need to show you guys a little bit of the artwork that I'm talking about. This is just amazing artwork. This series needs to, oops, in my opinion, be turned into um, an anime at some point. Uh, and I think Nick Dragata's style is perfect for it. And if any of you, I don't know if this is going to make sense to anybody, but this has been stuck in my head since I first started reading this 5 years ago. If any of you are familiar with Muse, the uh, the musical group Muse, uh, specifically Knights of Sidonia, that song in my mind would be the soundtrack to this comic. It is somehow a perfect Western futuristic sci-fi. It's amazing. And I highly, highly recommend it. Please, please go check it out. All right, and finally, the recommendation for a current comic that I am presenting this week is also somewhat unique on this series because it hasn't even come out yet. And you just saw that a minute ago when I screwed up. It's Daredevil. Uh, Daredevil obviously is not a new character, it's not a new series, but Marvel likes to do this thing for some reason where they relaunch the series every couple of years. It's not like a reboot, it's not a reimagining. Everything that happened in the past happened in the past. They just like to put out a new number one every couple of years because they think it's going to increase sales, which it does, but I think it makes it a lot more confusing for people that want to get into comics when they don't know what number one and which number two and which number three all go together because they could at least put the volume number on the cover, but they don't. But anyway, this is getting ready to relaunch after the last series ended a couple months ago in a great little crossover called Devil's Reign. Series is written by Chip Zdarsky, who wrote the last volume of Daredevil that just ended, and that's why I'm doing this recommendation. His run of Daredevil has been my favorite run. There's been a lot of great runs of Daredevil. All right, let's talk about that for a second. Um, Frank Miller took over Daredevil in the very early '80s, and his run was iconic, right? A lot of everything you see in media is based off of Frank Miller's Daredevil, whether it be the movie, which we don't really talk about, or whether it's the Netflix show. A lot of that is based off of Frank Miller's writing. In fact, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were originally created kind of as an homage slash spoof to Frank Miller's Daredevil. That's a little tidbit for you. The ooze that turned the turtles into the Ninja Turtles was what seeped out of the truck that crashed into Matt Murdock and blinded him in the first place. So there you go, if you didn't know that. Instead of the hand, the Ninja Turtles fight the foot. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, um, then there was the Brian Michael Bendis run in the early 2000s. which was big and made Brian Michael Bendis a household name within comics circles. And he did a lot of great stuff there. He went on to become a lot larger, but I think his Daredevil stuff was his best stuff. And then personally, I really enjoyed the 2012 Mark Waid series. It took him kind of back to his roots, and I really enjoyed that. I'll probably be talking about those at some point in the future. But we're talking about Chip Zdarsky today. He took over the series the last relaunch, which would have been, I think, in 2019 or 2020. And he's proved himself to really understand Daredevil. It's been the best writing Daredevil's had in several years. Um, in the last series, dealt with the aftermath of Wilson Fisk, or the Kingpin, becoming the duly elected mayor of New York City. It dealt with Daredevil accidentally killing someone uh, in a battle and turning himself in, going on trial, and going to jail for the murder. While he was in jail, he had to deal with, you know, just imagine a superhero being in jail and what life would be like for that. But he also, while he was in jail, asked Elektra to help out and continue to keep Hell's Kitchen safe. And so Elektra became the new Daredevil while Matt was in jail. And the series followed both of them equally. But Elektra also is trying to deal with this whole no killing idea that Matt Murdock has going on. And that's been pretty interesting. So that series finished up a couple months ago, like I said, in the crossover called Devil's Reign, which was pretty good, which was Mayor Fisk's final full-out assault. He basically lost it, and all of the heroes of New York City trying to take him down. So this new Daredevil series, like I said, I haven't read it yet. It doesn't come out till Wednesday, but it's going to continue the Chip Zdarsky story with Matt and with Elektra. I'm very excited for it. And here's a chance to jump in on the ground floor or something. It's got my highest recommendation. I'm definitely going to read it as soon as I pick it up. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Well, that's all I got this week. That concludes Thor month. I'm sorry that some of the episodes came out a little bit later than intended, but I did want to make sure I got all 4 weeks of the month done before I saw the new Thor movie. I hope everyone gets a chance to see it, hopefully this weekend, and we can talk about it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in again, and I hope you have a great week. See ya.